Have you ever heard a sound that didn't belong? Not just something strange, but something that felt wrong. The kind of sound that makes your stomach tighten and your instincts tell you to leave. Deep in the northern forests of Washington state, there is a sound that locals refuse to talk about. A chant. Low, rhythmic, and patient, almost like it is waiting for someone to answer. According to the records, everyone who followed it never came back. This is the story of the people who heard the chant and vanished. In October of 2014, a search and rescue team found something strange deep inside the Gifford-Pinchot National Forest. Strapped to a tree about a mile of the main trail was a small trail camera. It was still running and still recording. At first, that didn't seem unusual. Hikers lose gear all the time, but when they checked the memory card, they realized this camera hadn't been abandoned. It had been left there on purpose, and what it recorded over 3 nights still isn't fully explained. The camera belonged to a 26-year-old outdoor photographer named Evan Mercer. Evan wasn't reckless, and he wasn't chasing danger. He was quiet, organized, and obsessed with remote places, the kind of places where the world still feels untouched. A week earlier, he told his girlfriend he was heading out for a 3-day solo hike. He wanted to photograph some old fire lookout towers near an abandoned ranger trail. He left a detailed route plan, packed light, and promised he would text as soon as he had service again. He never did. 3 days passed, then 5, then 7. That's when his girlfriend called the park service. At first, rangers assumed the usual. A twisted ankle, a broken leg, maybe he got lost. But when the search team found Evan's campsite, they immediately knew something was wrong. His tent was still standing. His food was untouched. His backpack was right where he left it, and his boots were lined up neatly outside the tent. It didn't look like someone had an accident. It looked like someone had stood up and walked away. The only thing missing was his camera. About a mile from the campsite, a ranger named Thomas Calder found it. The trail camera was strapped to a tree, facing a small clearing. It was still powered on and still recording. They took it back to the ranger station and reviewed the footage. Day 1 was normal. Evan setting up camp, checking his gear, adjusting the camera angle. Day 2 showed only wildlife, deer passing through and wind moving the trees. Nothing unusual. But on the 3rd night, at exactly 2:11 in the morning, the audio changed. A low, steady chant started in the distance. It wasn't loud, and it wasn't aggressive. It almost sounded calm. It wasn't in English or any language they recognized. It was just a repeating pattern of sounds over and over again. A few minutes later, Evan's tent zipper opened. The camera caught him stepping into the frame. He stood there, listening, not moving, not speaking, just staring into the darkness. Then, very quietly, he whispered something back. After that, he turned and walked into the trees. That was the last time anyone ever saw Evan Mercer. At first, the Park Service tried to keep the case quiet. He was listed as missing, presumed lost, and the investigation stayed open. But over the next 6 months, 2 more people vanished in the exact same area. The second was a college student named Rachel Kim. She had been hiking with 2 friends, but split up early to photograph a waterfall. She never came back. Search teams found her backpack about half a mile from the trail. Inside was her phone, still working and still recording audio. At 2:11 in the morning, the same chant started. This time, the recording picked up Rachel whispering, "I hear you," followed by the sound of footsteps moving away. The third disappearance was a retired surveyor named Michael Grant. He had decades of experience in the wilderness and knew how to survive in places far more dangerous than this. But his case followed the same pattern. Same area, same time, same sound. 3 people, 3 recordings, 1 chant, and none of them were ever found. That's when Ranger Thomas Calder made a mistake. A very human mistake. He started listening to the recordings alone, late at night, with headphones on. At first, it was just part of the investigation. Then it became something else. He began replaying them again and again. He later told a coworker that the chant started to feel familiar, like a pattern you almost recognize, like a song you know but can't quite remember. One night, while reviewing the audio, Thomas noticed something new. Beneath the chant, there was something else, something faint, almost hidden under the rhythm. He boosted the audio and cleaned it up as much as he could. That's when he realized what he was hearing wasn't just noise. It was voices, dozens of them, overlapping whispers, all saying the same thing, "Come back." That discovery changed the case. Thomas started digging through old archives, looking for anything similar. That is when he found a sealed incident report from 1978. 3 campers had disappeared in the same region. The report mentioned unexplained vocalizations and voluntary departure into forested area. No bodies were found, no tracks, and no explanation. In the margin, someone had written a single sentence by hand. They followed the chant. After that, the Park Service quietly closed that section of forest. There was no press release and no announcement, just a temporary trail closure that never reopened. Thomas tried to push the investigation further. He asked for permission to set up more audio monitoring equipment. The request was denied. He tried to contact local tribes to ask if there were any legends or stories connected to that area. Most refused to talk. One elder simply told him that some voices are not meant to be answered. But Thomas couldn't let it go. The more he listened to the recordings, the more convinced he became that the chant wasn't random. It wasn't just wind or echoes. It sounded deliberate, almost organized. And worse, it sounded like it was changing, becoming clearer with each new recording. In the spring of 2015, Thomas Calder stopped showing up for work. His truck was found parked near the closed trail. Inside was his radio, still turned on and still recording. When they reviewed the audio, they heard that familiar chant again, starting at 2:11 in the morning. Then they heard Thomas speak. He sounded calm, almost peaceful, as he said, "I hear you now." After that, there was the sound of him walking away. They never found him. Thomas became the fourth person to vanish in that forest, and this time, the case could no longer be explained away as simple accidents or bad luck, because Thomas didn't just hear the chant. He had been studying it, listening to it, trying to understand it, and in the end, it seemed like the chant was listening back. What unsettled investigators the most was the pattern. The exact same time, the exact same sound, the exact same response. It was as if something in those woods was waiting, calling out, and choosing who would answer. And the people who did were never seen again. Some of the search team members later admitted that, while combing through the area, they sometimes thought they heard something too. Not clearly, not enough to record, but enough to make them stop and listen. A low, distant rhythm that didn't quite match the wind or the animals. Most of them told themselves it was just their imagination. They didn't want to think about what it might mean if it wasn't. Because if the chant was real, if it was actually calling to people, then the forest wasn't just a place where people got lost. It was a place where people were taken. And the most disturbing part was this. Every recording ended the same way, with someone hearing the chant, with someone answering it, and with someone walking calmly into the darkness as if they believed, truly believed, that whatever was calling them was something they were supposed to find. When search teams reviewed Thomas Calder's final recording, they expected the same pattern as before. The chant, a whisper, footsteps, and then silence. But this time, there was something different. After Thomas said, "I hear you now," the chanting stopped. For the first time, it stopped completely, and in that silence, a new sound emerged. Clear, close, deliberate. A voice speaking right next to the microphone. It said, "Good." Then there were footsteps. Not just one pair, not two, but many. Moving through the leaves, circling him. And then nothing. No sound of struggle. No shout. No sign of panic. Just disappearance. His footprints ended abruptly in the middle of a clearing, as if he had simply walked into the air. Weeks of searching turned up nothing. Helicopters scoured the treetops. Dogs combed the forest floor. Thermal cameras swept the area, but nothing. No body, no blood, no torn clothing, just empty forest and Thomas Calder gone. Investigators began to notice the pattern. It wasn't random. It wasn't an accident. People weren't lost, they were taken. And the recordings suggested that the forest itself was calling them in. Locals who had lived in the area for decades refused to speak on record. One retired ranger told investigators of the record that the region had a nickname among longtime staff, the listening ground. According to him, strange disappearances went back over 100 years. Loggers, hunters, hikers, even a surveying team in the 1930s, all vanished under similar circumstances. The consistent element was that they heard something, a chant or a voice that felt alive, and they followed it. Those who ran reported that the sound didn't just echo. It seemed to move, to chase, to follow them as they fled. Some scientists attempted to explain the phenomenon. Infrasound, they suggested, can create feelings of unease, dread, even hallucinations. Wind patterns can produce eerie, melodic tones. But infrasound doesn't record as organized chanting. It doesn't mimic human whispers. It doesn't call out names. Those who studied the recordings were haunted by the precision, the almost intentional structure of the sounds. Whoever or whatever was creating them seemed aware of the humans in the forest. It knew when they were listening. In 2019, two urban explorers decided to bypass the closed trails and camp overnight in the area. They set up a live stream to document their adventure. At exactly 11 a.m., the chat exploded. Viewers typed that they could hear chanting in the background, low and steady, coming from deep within the woods. The stream abruptly ended. When authorities recovered the cameras 2 days later, there was no trace of the explorers. Not their tent, not their sleeping bags, not their footprints. Just empty forest. The files showed the last audio clearly. The chant, growing louder as if approaching, then silence. It wasn't just about sound. Investigators noted that each missing person, each recording, seemed to follow a rhythm beyond the forest. The same hour, the same pattern of behavior. People heard it, answered it, and vanished. No struggle, no panic. Just a calm acceptance, as though they were walking towards something they already knew. It was as if the forest itself was alive, observing, selecting, and calling those it wanted. And over time, the selection process seemed to be getting more deliberate, almost intelligent. The recording suggested that it was learning, adapting, waiting for the right person to answer. The elders from nearby tribes refused to give details but spoke in cryptic warnings. One said that some voices are not meant to be answered, that some calls are older than memory and belong to the forest itself. They spoke of a rhythm, a song that appears in cycles, calling those who wander too far into isolation. The chant, they said, was not a sound but a test, and humans were not meant to pass it. Some who hear it and run live to tell their story, but those who answer are never seen again. Even among park rangers, the story has taken on a supernatural weight. One former ranger admitted that the forest doesn't just hide people, it waits. It listens, it calls, and when someone responds, it removes them entirely. People vanish without a trace, leaving only their last moments captured in a recording. That recording is all that remains to warn others. But warnings are rarely heeded. Humans are curious, drawn to things they don't understand. And the chant thrives on curiosity. The recordings themselves show something disturbing. Layered beneath the chanting, faint whispers can be heard. They are human, dozens of them overlapping, repeating words in a pattern. Some recordings, when played backward, reveal phrases like follow, listen, and come. The forest seems to speak not just through sound, but through suggestion, through a subtle compulsion that draws humans in. Every person who vanished appears to have made a choice, and yet the choice itself was influenced by something beyond comprehension. Investigators theorize that the forest or whatever resides in it is not malicious in the human sense. There are no attacks, no killings. It doesn't chase in rage. It calls, observes, and selects. And those who answer walk into another realm of the forest, a space that exists alongside our reality, where they are never seen again. Some speculate that this is a kind of natural trap, a phenomenon that has existed for centuries, unnoticed until modern technology began capturing its patterns. Others believe it is something sentient, predatory in a way that doesn't involve violence, removing humans like prey from a familiar plane into something else entirely. What remains chilling is that the pattern continues. New recordings captured by hikers in recent years show the same chant, the same timing, and even the faintest whispers beneath the melody. And in every case, the forest is empty of people afterward. The disappearance is absolute. Investigators have noted that the chant appears to adapt, becoming clearer, more structured, more deliberate, almost as if it learns from each person who answers. It isn't just repeating, it's communicating. For anyone living nearby or visiting, there is an unspoken rule. If you hear a sound that doesn't belong, if you hear a rhythm that feels alive, do not answer, do not follow. Humans are curious by nature, but some curiosities are deadly. Those who ignored the warning and followed the chant vanished quietly, leaving only a camera, a recording, or an empty campsite, and sometimes only the memory of a whispered name in the darkness, calling them forward. So what does it mean, all of this? Perhaps the forest has always been alive in ways humans cannot understand, a place that observes and acts according to its own patterns. Perhaps the chant is a test of attention, obedience, or susceptibility. Perhaps it is something older than the forest itself, an echo of voices long gone, reaching through time to call the living. And perhaps, just perhaps, it will continue to call as long as people wander into its domain. The truth is that we may never fully understand the phenomenon. People have disappeared in every generation. Some choose to hear it, some choose to run, but the ones who answer are gone. And every recording, every report, every whisper left behind only serves to warn the next person who might stray too far. The forest waits, patient, observing, calling, and choosing, and it is always quietly listening. If you ever find yourself deep in the woods, wandering alone, and you hear a sound that doesn't belong to any living thing, do not follow it. Do not answer. Some chants are older than memory, older than sound, older than the forest itself. They are not meant for humans, and those who respond do not return. The people who walked into that darkness, the people who heard the chant, are gone in a way that leaves nothing behind. Their existence ends not with violence, but with disappearance. And in the silence that follows, the forest waits for the next voice that dares to respond. So if you enjoyed this story, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to Mystery Spectrum as for more true mysteries, disappearances, and stories that will make you question what is really out there. Stay curious, and most importantly, stay safe, because in some places, the forest isn't just a forest, and the sounds you hear are not just the wind. Some voices are not meant to be answered, and some calls should never be followed. The people who heard this chant never came back, and the forest is still calling.